name's Daniel, and I am in recovery for pornography addiction. So just start with it. And I'm happy to be here. Yeah, and it's been a while that I've never shared before at an Ashes to Rubies, and I am happy to be doing it with all of you. So I just want to share my story, a bit of it, with the hope that it might be of help, of service to somebody. It's not necessarily super exciting. It's not necessarily super dramatic, but these are my moments and my choices that would have led to destruction or to life. And so, I'm also from Ottawa, like Johnny B. Exciting town, love it. But I've been coming to UCC and Ashes to Rubies for a couple of years, and it has been amazing. And hearing your stories every month is just like, wow. There's truth and there's hope and there's everything, giving hope a platform. But my beginning was Ottawa, born into a pretty stable house. I had great parents. They had just kind of become Christians before I came onto the scene. And they gave me a good example of an honest faith, trying to figure out what it looks like. And, if I'm 28 years old, a Christian, they're they're 30 years of Christian. They're just ahead of me. But they gave me a great foundation and lots of love. For that, I'm grateful. But my story with addiction starts pretty young. I had great support, and then I also had parents who didn't know anything about the internet. And I became more knowledgeable when I was 11 or 12. And it didn't take long for curiosity to lead to things that I shouldn't have been seeing at that point in my life. And no sooner had curiosity kind of drawn me down, one step down a path, than I found myself on a slippery slope. And there's adrenaline, and there's endorphins, and there's all sorts of things that by the time I realized, I shouldn't be doing this, it was kind of a little bit too late, and there was a dependency that had been created. And I'm not sure if that happened at 12, 14, 18, 24. I'm not sure where the word addiction would necessarily fit in, but there were some telltale signs that by the time I wanted to get off, the train had left the station, or, the rocket ship. You can't jump off a rocket ship. You can jump off a train. I've seen the movies. But when addiction takes off, you can't jump off a rocket ship. And I was realizing, other people, they can stop. I can't stop. Or I'm like, okay, I got a new plan, game plan. Here we go. And I couldn't make any progress. I started to realize that bad habit wasn't really descriptive of what I was experiencing, that it was something more. And I took until I came across someone like John Ruby to be like, oh, addiction. Like I said, I grew up in a fairly Christian kind of circle. Those words I didn't have vocabulary or a way to see that intersecting with my life. But it's at this point now, recognizing I can't really stop this journey that I'm on. Things started to get ugly because I realized now I'm stuck in a cage match, battle to the death, but it's against myself. And it's not even a close fight. Myself, addict Daniel, that's the language that I got from LifeLab. It's it wasn't even close. They're on roids, they've got a personal trainer, and they know all of my weaknesses of normal Daniel. But never fear, in my story, normal Daniel has some tricks up his sleeve. They're called delusion and denial. And I could pull those things out all the time, anytime, just to put some distance between what I was experiencing and where I wanted to be. And that's why my story, like John said in his little intro, could be hidden for so long. Because I could hide it from myself and say oh, no, it's just, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I'm making progress. The amount of years I believed little things like that, that actually just held me in the kind of grip of addiction. Delusion had me kind of I'm just orbiting around this world. I'm not actually in reality. I'm just kind of rotating around and thinking, I'm fine. If I just do better over here, or I can, I'm living a really great faith on Sundays, but then kind of can ignore the rest of the week because of that. All of that was driven by delusion, and of course, it never helped. It just helped me to cope temporarily. The real ugliness starts in my story with shame, and I think this is a pretty universal human experience. But in my story, shame comes I'm putting this image forward, and I've got, great friends, good stuff that I'm doing, places that I feel belonging, and I'm starting actually to have the chance to go to prayer meetings. People are like, yeah, amen, Daniel. Like, why don't you speak? Meanwhile, shame is over here just holding me like kind of like hostage or like blackmail. Like, oh, if you told anyone, they would know. It would all kind of fall apart. Kind of the image, the places that I derived love and belonging from would fall apart. And it hits the road when I'm in university, and I'm actually like leading my peers in like faith and Bible study, because faith is important to me. And so is addiction, apparently. And shame is just putting like its finger on that wound and saying, you can't tell anyone. And it took a community to begin the pivot point for me. It took people. I can remember jogging along the canal with a guy who was mentoring me. He's just asking me like, so like, how's it going? And I can remember like my like stomach like dropped. I'm like dragging it behind me on this run and just had to spit it out. Things are fine except for I'm addicted to pornography. And he didn't bat an eye. He was super gracious, and he was the kind of the beginning point where I started to be able to open up to people. My problems stopped being so hidden, and I started to realize with people that I couldn't do it all myself. And that's kind of like the main thing in my recovery journey, that I had for so long tried to make other people my solution. If I just got roommates, they'd help me. I built a bunk bed so that I could have bunk bed roommates. I'm like, that will be my solution. Or if I get in a good relationship, that will that will give me the motivation, the external motivation. Or if I just, try harder. Those things never panned out because it was always on me. And myself was playing this final trick in this battle of addiction, which was to life or death. And the trick was, if I could just win in addiction, then I could point to myself and be like, you see, I did it. I started this problem and I finished this problem. It's all about me. You can clap, please. No, don't clap, because that's a big old lie. And I came to recognize some really ugly realities, is that my pride was holding me back from really knowing God, and it was holding me back from really knowing other people and letting people know me. Pride was really, tie in fear, tie in shame. It was all those things that I started to get language through from this community, through our LifeLab course in BBA, the Big Book Awakening. And it took me a long time, like a decade and a half, before really I recognized that I didn't know God. Like, I was powerless, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I didn't really know God or his power, because I was always trying to live on my own power to kind of, show off God. It was kind of a false relationship. And my turning point came when my delusion was shot down, when I had to spell through, where is this going to take me if I stay on this track? Is it going to have to take my job? Is it going to have to take my relationship? If I have a family, because I was engaged at the time that I really hit this point, is it going to take my kids? Is it going to take me to the point of hopelessness where I have nothing left and maybe it takes my life? And being walked through that was the moment where I'm like, I actually need to really surrender. And so I started every day. I had to wake up, and my bunk bed had to get thrown out because of bed bugs, and I was sleeping on a therm rest. So I really remember it. I'd sit up in the morning with my sleeping bag and have to say, God, I'm powerless today. Like, today I need your help, or else I'm not going anywhere good. And I had to do that every day. And then I had to start meeting with people and start going to like meetings and maybe taking people under me once I finished a couple steps. And it ended like, those are just my ways. It ended with I couldn't even have internet on my phone or my laptop. I had to have like supervision for 2 years. And every morning I had to do that. But now I'm at the point where I'm 2 years and 2 weeks clean and sober. Yeah. And I have to be here every week. I have to make the meetings that I go to and have the fellowship and take people on like the stories you're sharing. And I never knew about that. I was just like trying to be a Christian without knowing God. And this community has showed me like what it really means to surrender and experience God's love and power through and with other people. So I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you.